two wizards, two legends, and a question that has been on fans' minds for years. What would happen if Gandalf and Dumbledore really faced off against each other? Who would be stronger in the end? Most people immediately have a clear opinion, but when you take a closer look, this duel becomes much more complex than it seems at first glance. To judge fairly, we must first set clear parameters. Both are at the peak of their powers. The location is neutral, no one knows the other's abilities in advance, and we consider only what is shown or confirmed in the official works. So it's not about sympathy, but about a comparison in clear categories. Raw power, tactical ability, endurance, and the level at which that power operates. Let's start with Gandalf. Many underestimate him because he rarely displays spectacular magic. But Gandalf is not human, nor is he an ordinary wizard. He is a Maya, an immortal spiritual being who existed long before the realms of men. His power is deliberately limited, not because he is weak, but because his task is not to rule, but to guide and lead. When Gandalf acts, he usually does so cautiously, almost passively, but this often makes people forget his true potential. A prime example of Gandalf's raw power is his battle against the Balrog of Moria. The Balrog is no ordinary monster, but an ancient demonic creature that exists on a higher plane of existence. Gandalf confronts it alone on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, destroys it with a single spell, and then fights the Balrog for days through fire and ice until he finally defeats it. In the process, Gandalf himself dies, and later returns stronger than ever. This event alone shows that Gandalf not only possesses enormous power, but that even death is not a final boundary for him. We see this raw, fundamental strength at other moments too. He drives away the Nazgul with light and willpower alone, breaks Saruman's influence over King Theoden with a few words, and changes the course of entire battles with his mere presence. Gandalf's magic rarely feels like a classic spell. It feels more like a law of nature that is activated when necessary. In terms of pure power reserves, Gandalf clearly plays in a higher league. Dumbledore, on the other hand, demonstrates his abilities in a completely different way. He is the absolute maximum of what a human wizard can achieve, and he makes full use of these possibilities. His magic is visible, precise, and extremely versatile. In his duel with Voldemort at the Ministry, he simultaneously controls multiple elements, conjures up huge masses of water, shapes them into protective shields, and counters deadly attacks with apparent ease. This duel clearly shows that Dumbledore is not only powerful, but also wields his magic with extraordinary control. Another good example is the cave with the Horcrux. Although he is already weakened, Dumbledore defends himself and Harry against an entire army of Inferi by controlling the entire area with a large-scale fire spell. At the same time, he maintains an overview, protects his companion, and plans the next step. Dumbledore never acts impulsively. Every spell, every movement serves a clear purpose. This is where the biggest difference between the two becomes apparent: the tactical level. Dumbledore is a master strategist. He analyzes his opponents, recognizes patterns, and exploits weaknesses. Over the years, he directs events in the background, manipulates information, and positions other characters exactly where he needs them. His greatest strength is not brute force, but control, over knowledge, time, and decisions. In a short tactical duel, Dumbledore would most likely have the advantage because he reacts faster and acts more flexibly. Gandalf is also intelligent, but his approach is different. He relies more on the right moment, on hope, and on the greater balance of things. He is less of a chess player and more of a guardian of the playing field itself. When it comes to tactics and planning, Dumbledore is clearly ahead. When it comes to raw power, however, Gandalf is ahead. Another crucial factor is endurance. Dumbledore is mortal. He can tire, be injured, and ultimately die. Gandalf, on the other hand, is immortal. Even if his body falls, his essence continues to exist. A short, explosive battle could play into Dumbledore's hands. A long battle, however, would greatly favor Gandalf, because time is not a limiting factor for him. However, the most important factor is the level at which both operate. Dumbledore acts within the laws of his world. As powerful as he is, his magic has clear limits. Gandalf, on the other hand, is part of a higher order. He is also subject to rules, but these are above human magic. Dumbledore can influence reality. Gandalf exists on a level where reality is shaped. Another important point that is often overlooked is the way in which both use their power. Dumbledore is a wizard who takes action. He attacks, counters, adapts, and reacts very quickly to changes. In his duels, we see how he finds new solutions within seconds, combines spells, and turns situations to his advantage. His magic is flexible, precise, and heavily dependent on his intellect. This makes him extremely dangerous in dynamic, unpredictable battles. Gandalf, on the other hand, acts much more cautiously. He does not use his power constantly, but very selectively. It often seems as if he waits until a certain point is reached before intervening. This is not because he hesitates, but because his role is different. Gandalf usually intervenes when a balance is upset or a line is crossed. His power is less reactive and more directional. When Gandalf acts, it changes not only the battle, but the entire situation. This difference is also evident in how the two deal with mistakes. Dumbledore can correct mistakes by using new spells or adjusting his strategy. Gandalf, on the other hand, often seems to avoid making mistakes in the first place because he sees the bigger picture. He thinks less in terms of individual moves and more in terms of developments. But this also means that Dumbledore is more flexible in the short term, while Gandalf remains superior in the long term. This contrast is particularly decisive in a direct duel. In the first few minutes, Dumbledore would most likely have the advantage. He would test, analyze, and build up pressure. Gandalf, on the other hand, would probably survive this phase without revealing his full power. However, the longer the fight lasts, the more the balance shifts. While Dumbledore continuously expends energy, Gandalf draws ever deeper on a power that is not bound by exhaustion. The conclusion is therefore nuanced. In a short, perfectly planned duel, with surprise and tactical superiority, Dumbledore could win. His versatility and strategic intelligence make him an extremely dangerous opponent. But in a real fight, without luck and without narrative constraints, Gandalf would ultimately prevail. Not because he is the smarter fighter, but because his raw power and plane of existence transcend what a human wizard can ultimately overcome. Now it's your turn. Do you think Dumbledore could win with perfect preparation, or is Gandalf on a different level from the start? Write your opinion in the comments and tell me which duel we should analyze next. If you like these comparisons, subscribe to the channel. This is where legends meet.